president of Reasoning from the Scriptures Ministries, and we've had him on many times before. He's got a new book called 40 Days Through Revelation. 40 Days Through Revelation, Uncovering the Mystery of the End Times. Ron Rhodes joins us now. Ron, good morning to you.
Well, good morning. How are you today?
Wonderful. How are you doing, sir?
Doing pretty good.
Where are you today?
Well, I'm in Frisco, Texas, which is north of Dallas.
Frisco? How'd that get its name?
You know, I don't know, but we're feeling pretty good about ourselves because we used to be just a ranch community, but we officially became a city just a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah, we still have cows walking around and horses galloping around, but
you're
we're now a real city, and so our self-image has improved immensely.
You're a real town now. Even the cows are proud.
That's right. But, you know, it's still kind of funny because at some of these burger places where you just drive up to pick up your food, you still see people on horses gallop in to pick up their food at these drive-ins.
Are you serious?
Oh, wow.
I'm serious. It's kind of funny to look at, but it does happen.
Hey, send me a picture. If you get I'd love to see a horse going through a drive-through.
I would too.
Hey, I'll do it. I've got one on my iPhone here.
Okay.
Oh, my word.
Wonderful. We'll get that information when we get off the
That's crazy.
off the phone here. By the way, that's not in the book of Revelation, is it? You know,
No.
talking about
No.
horses. Okay.
Well, there are horses.
There are
You know,
horses. The four horsemen.
You have the four horses of the, the horsemen of the apocalypse.
But they're not going through Burger King.
No, they're not going in to get burgers.
Okay, I got you. All right, good deal.
Glad we get that
hey,
straight.
Seriously, Ron, tell our listeners a little bit of what you do and your background so that we can set this thing up here.
Well, I run a ministry called Reasoning from the Scriptures. We believe that the Bible has the answers that we need today, and our organization seeks to provide information on not just prophecy, but apologetics. We try to provide the answers that people need today, and so we work very hard toward that end. And because prophecy is so critically important, because over one-third of the Bible is prophetic in nature, that's one of the reasons why I focus heavily on prophecy. And I might mention to you that when I became a Christian way back, way long ago, prophecy played the critical role. And so that's a part of evangelism when you think about it, because Bible prophecy shows, among other things, that the Bible truly is the Word of God because only God knows the future.
Are you talking about Hal Lindsey's Late Great Planet Earth?
Well, that was one of the things that played a role. I was actually in Hollywood at the time and pursuing a Hollywood career. I was doing a lot of TV shows out there like The Tonight Show and The Merv Griffin Show and all of those kind of shows. And then all of a sudden I found myself working with Pat Boone and his family, and they were very much into Bible prophecy. Now, I had never heard about this before. I had never heard of the second coming of Christ or the rapture or the Antichrist or the tribulation period. All of this was new to me. And so long story short, I ended up reading a bunch of books on Bible prophecy. Within 30 days, I became a Christian, and then one by one, my 7 brothers and sisters became Christians as well.
I know I talked to many people who come to know the Lord in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, reading Hal Lindsey's prophecy book, The Late Great Planet Earth in particular. And I know maybe not all those things that Hal talked about in there, came to pass as he predicted that they would. That doesn't negate the Bible being true, but maybe Hal's interpretation was off somewhat. But the book served a great purpose because it was introducing a lot of people to the fact that there will be an end to this world, and that Jesus Christ is Lord of the universe. Ron?
Well, that's right. In fact, one of the things that you discover in reading the book of Revelation is that the word throne occurs over 40 times.
How many times?
40 times.
Wow.
And so that sort of indicates that one of the themes is that God indeed is sovereign and that he is guiding human history toward its culmination. And as you've heard a number of times, and as my old friend Walter Martin used to put it, I read the last chapter in the book, and we win. You see, and God is the one who makes sure that we win. And for that reason, I think the book is very relevant to us today because, I think a lot of people, even Christians, are a bit nervous about our world. our world is having problems, not just in our nation, but around the world, the entire globe. And so it's good to know that God is in control.
You know, I was listening to Dr. David Jeremiah talk about this, you know, the anxiety that a lot of Americans have about the world today, and maybe this is shared around the globe, but certainly a lot of Americans who are basically optimistic people, generally speaking. But he said, and he was quoting Joel Rosenberg, who's he's been on with us before, and he said, and there was a great word picture that Joel Rosenberg used to describe the way people feel today, and that is, it's as if you're standing out on a frozen pond, maybe in Minnesota, John, and you hear the ice start to crack beneath your feet. And, you know, maybe you hear it's in the distance, but, you know, nevertheless, you're anxious. You think, we're not on solid footing. Maybe we're 2 steps from calamity.
Right.
I mean, that's just the way people feel today, generally speaking. But Ron, so that, I guess that maybe that's a good description of what you're talking about here. We lost Ron. Just FYI, folks, we've just experienced a severe thunderstorm where our home studios are located in Tupelo, Mississippi. So that may have caused a disconnection there with the phone lines.
Tends to knock things off a little bit.
Yeah, and messes up computers and makes you have to call India. Are you back, Ron?
I am back. I bet you thought I got raptured.
Well, John and I thought we were left behind here.
Yeah,
we didn't know what was going on. Hey, so what did you hear me say? Anything? Because I was pretty eloquent there for about 2 minutes.
Oh, you know, I wish I had heard that.
Wow, you missed it. I can't say it again. Anyway, let's talk about. Let me ask you some questions here, and Ron wants to ask you. John wants to ask you some questions. First of all, your book, 40 Days Through Revelation, Uncovering the Mystery of the End Times, by our guest Ron Rhodes, is available everywhere.
It's available everywhere. If you'd like to shop online, you know, all the major online bookstores carry it. And, you know, if you go to your Christian bookstore, it's in almost all Christian bookstores. And you'll also find it in some of the secular stores, you know, like Barnes & Noble and some of those places.
Okay. Let me ask you this, a series of questions here. Are you convinced that the scriptures of prophecy that had to have been fulfilled before the second coming of Jesus Christ? By second coming, I meant first coming was when he was on earth, and we read about it in the Bible.
Right.
But Jesus in the Bible said that he'll come back again to planet Earth. And that's what we're talking about here. Do you think there's anything waiting to happen in your view between, go ahead.
Well, I think that's a good question. And I like to draw a distinction between the second coming, which happens at the end of the tribulation period, and the rapture of the church. Now, there's controversy over when the rapture happens. You guys know this.
Oh, yeah, and you're about to make a third of the people upset.
Well, I really don't like to divide with Christians over the issue. You know, I personally am a pre-trib. I believe that the rapture will happen before the tribulation. But, you know, there's other good Christians that think it's in the middle of the tribulation,
right,
and others at the end of the tribulation, and still others towards the latter part of the tribulation, maybe 3/4 of the way through the tribulation. And this is not a test of orthodoxy. There's good Christians who hold to all those positions. I believe that there's not a single sign that awaits the rapture, that that's the next thing on God's timetable. Now, if you happen to be a post-trib and that you're going to go through the tribulation, well, there are some things that you can watch for and determine with fairly good precision the time of the second coming. I say that because the thing that actually begins the clock ticking for the 7-year tribulation is when the Antichrist signs a covenant with Israel according to Daniel 9:26 and 27, and from that point forward, there's a 7-year countdown. And then, of course, the book of Revelation mentions a number of other things throughout the tribulation. For example, in the middle of the tribulation, the text says that the Antichrist will set up his headquarters in Jerusalem. So if you were in the tribulation, then there are some markers that you can watch for that would naturally lead you to conclude that the second coming of Christ would be in a general time frame, within 7 years. But if you're a pre-trib like me, then you would expect that the rapture would happen next, and there's no sign that precedes that. I hope that's kind of clear. Christians do have some different views on some of this stuff, and that's okay.
But, whatever your view is on that, we can all agree that Jesus is coming back.
That's right.
That's the important thing. And in fact, I think personally that once we've been with Christ in heaven for 10 billion years, we might feel a little bit silly thinking back on how we had put on the boxing gloves on the timing of the last 7 years of human history.
I'm with you, brother.
That's true.
I'm with you. I get a little mystified when I see people arguing so vehemently about that, what you just described.
Well, what's funny is that when you look at the humanists and the atheists and some of the articles they write in their magazines, they love to watch Christians put on the boxing gloves. Mm-hmm. They love to write articles about that. And my feeling is, why should we give them any ammo? Mm-hmm. Why should we do that? We can agree to disagree in an agreeable way on these issues. And I'm very convinced in my view. You're very convinced in your view. And that's good. That's fine. But let's not put on the boxing gloves on it.
RonRhodes.org is Ron's website. Ron Rhodes, RHODES.org. There's a couple of things I wanted to ask you about, Ron. There are people that don't believe in the Bible at all. We're not even talking about the Book of Revelation. They don't believe that the Bible is accurate or true or historical, any of those things. And one thing that stands out to me as one thing that stands out that they have to contend with, to me, that's unexplainable without the Bible, is the fact that Jewish people still exist today. That we go back and read about the Hebrew people in the early part of the Bible. Those people are still around today, and they play an important part in the end times. So how do you explain that one if you're an atheist, for example?
Well, I think that's a great question. When you talk about prophecy in general, what the atheists would try to argue is that the people that wrote the Bible wrote the prophecies after the fact. In other words, they stuck it in the Bible after the prophecy had been, fulfilled, but they wrote it as prophecy, making like it was written before the event.
Well, they were trying to trick people for the ages.
That's right. And this was a consistent trickery. This took place all throughout the Old Testament and all throughout the New Testament. I tell you what, as my old friend Norman Geisler put it, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. When you look at some of that, I mean, you've really got to kiss your brain goodbye in order to believe that kind of nonsense. But your point about Israel is such a good one. Even in terms of what happened in 1948, did you know that there were prophecy scholars who lived in the early 1940s and the 1930s and the 1920s, and they were writing about their viewpoint that one day Israel would be reborn again as a nation, and everyone ridiculed them. Imagine how they felt when in 1948 Israel was indeed born again as a nation. Atheists can mock us all they want, but the reality is that Ezekiel 36 and 37 talks about the fact that God would bring Jews not just from one nation, as it was in Egypt so long ago, but from all the nations around the world back to the homeland, and that Israel would be born again as a nation. Ezekiel wrote that, over 2,000 years ago, 2,600 years ago. And
it came to pass.
That's not a good thing for the atheist to have to debate with, because
that prophecy you just cited, written how many years ago?
That's like 2,600 years ago.
Okay, came to pass or was fulfilled in the year 1948, when Israel was reestablished as a sovereign country, a Jewish homeland, and the Jews did come back to their homeland, Israel, from around the world.